Out here in the heart of southern Tunisia lies a place that looks like another planet. It's white, cracked, endless, and boiling under the sun. This is Chott el Jerid. It stretches nearly 100 kilometers wide, a giant salt flat, the biggest one in North Africa. Sometimes after rare rains, the whole thing turns into a shimmering mirror. Other times it looks like a cracked eggshell from the sky. But what if this dried up lakebed wasn't dry anymore? What if Tunisia flooded it? No, this isn't science fiction. This is a real idea. A bold, controversial plan to bring the sea deep into the Sahara Desert, turning this salt flat into a vast inland lake. Could this project reshape the climate, bring rain to the desert, and even turn sand into farmland? Or is it just another mirage? Let's explore the story of Chott el Jerid and the wild dream to flood the Sahara. So how did this all begin? Chott el Jerid isn't just any dry lakebed. It's a massive natural feature, a shallow depression in southern Tunisia, nestled between mountain ranges and the edge of the Sahara. It's around 5,000 square kilometers. That's about the size of Rhode Island. And when you stand on its edge, you don't see an end, just a blinding salty plain stretching to the horizon. Most of the year it's bone dry. The ground crunches under your feet. In the summer, mirages rise like waves. But after rare winter rains, shallow water returns. For a few weeks, Chott el Jerid becomes a vast, glittering sea. And this strange behavior is exactly what caught the attention of engineers and dreamers. Because despite its surreal beauty, Chott el Jerid sits in a basin, one that's surrounded by other low-lying salt lakes called chotts. Some of these areas are slightly below sea level, and surprisingly, the Mediterranean Sea isn't far. At one point, it's just 25 kilometers away. In the late 1800s, this geography inspired an idea. What if a canal could bring seawater inland? What if we could reconnect this dry basin to the sea and create a brand new inland lake in the middle of the desert? The plan wasn't just to flood a lake, it was to change the climate, bring rain, and create farmland. But what's real? What's myth? And could it actually work? To find out, we need to rewind the clock, back to the 19th century. The idea of flooding the Sahara started in 1877. A Scottish man named Donald Mackenzie proposed digging a canal from the Atlantic Ocean into the desert. He believed a huge area in modern-day Mauritania, known as El Jouf, was far below sea level. He imagined a sea 155,000 square kilometers wide, twice the size of Lake Superior. He thought it would bring ships, rain, and even farms to the desert. But there was a problem. Mackenzie had never been there. His maps were wrong. El Jouf wasn't below sea level, it was 320 meters above it. His plan crumbled under basic geography. But the idea didn't die. Just a year later, a French military geographer, François-Élie Rouder, made a new proposal. While surveying the deserts of Algeria and Tunisia, he discovered salt basins, called chotts, that did lie below sea level, especially one, Chott el Jerid, part of the Chott el Jerid basin. Rouder believed he'd found the remnants of an ancient sea, once known as Lake Tritonis, and he had a bold idea: recreate it. He proposed building a canal from the Gulf of Gabes to the chotts. With the help of Ferdinand de Lesseps, the man behind the Suez Canal, they launched a project to flood southern Tunisia. The vision? A new sea, up to 8,000 square kilometers. It would generate clouds from evaporation, change the local climate, turn deserts into farmland, support fisheries, and even improve Europe's weather by shifting wind patterns. The engineering plan was ambitious. Cut through a 21-kilometer-wide sand ridge near El Hama, rising about 48 meters above sea level, and dig a canal roughly 190 kilometers long. This would allow seawater to flood the low-lying salt flats, especially Chott el Jerid and Chott el Jerid. Rouder believed the natural slope and pressure of the Mediterranean would help push the water inland. The proposed sea would sit at an average depth of 23 meters, navigable by ships and capable of supporting year-round evaporation cycles to fuel the envisioned rainfall system. To many, it sounded like progress, a mission to tame the desert. But others saw a nightmare. Critics warned that the new lake would just become a massive swamp, spreading disease instead of rain. Some doubted the climate would change at all, and then came the biggest blow. Surveyors discovered that much of the Chott el Jerid was actually above sea level. The canal would have to be longer, deeper, and much more expensive. Initial costs of 30 million francs ballooned. New estimates reached 1 billion francs, an astronomical amount in the 19th century. The French government pulled out in 1882. Roudère and de Lesseps tried to fund the project privately, but the support faded. Roudère died in 1885, and the dream faded into the desert wind. But it never truly disappeared. In the 20th century, new versions of the plan popped up. French professor Echegoyen proposed a larger, deeper canal in 1910. Again, the idea was rejected due to cost and geography. Then came the nuclear era. In the 1960s, during Operation Plowshare, American engineers proposed using nuclear bombs to blast a canal into the Tunisian Chotts. No joke. 213 nuclear explosions were suggested to flood parts of the Sahara. It never happened, thankfully. But interest in the idea returned again in the 2000s. A Tunisian-led project called Cooperation Road revived the plan. In 2018, the Tunisian government approved a study to revisit the canal, this time with peaceful means. Supporters say it could combat desertification, create jobs, improve agriculture, raise humidity, and even attract tourism. A modern inland sea right in the Sahara. But critics still point to the same challenges: evaporation, salt buildup, ecological damage, and enormous costs, possibly over $10 billion. Can this sea really work? Or is it destined to remain what it's always been? That question brings us to the other side of the world. Halfway across the globe, there's another desert that refuses to stay quiet: Australia's outback, a sun-scorched, rust-red wasteland where rain is a rumor and rivers vanish into the dust. And just like Tunisia, Australia has its own dreamers, people who look at this barren land and ask, what if we drowned it? Back in the 1930s, engineer John Bradfield, best known for the Sydney Harbour Bridge, unveiled a plan that bordered on madness. Hijack floodwaters from northern rivers and divert them 1,500 kilometers inland to Lake Eyre, a vast dry basin 15 meters below sea level. The vision? Create a permanent inland sea. Bring rain, support farms, maybe even build cities. It's Tunisia's Chott el Jerid plan, but with a twist. Australia's project would rely on erratic floods and distant rivers, while Tunisia's could draw from the nearby Mediterranean. Parts of Chott el Jerid already lie below sea level, a natural basin waiting to be filled. But from the start, the desert fought back. Evaporation claimed up to 80% of the water each year. Bradfield also overestimated the river's capacity, and the salt, just like Tunisia, flooding ancient mineral-rich soil could create toxic swamps instead of green farmland. In 2019, the idea returned as the modified Bradfield scheme, with dams, tunnels, and canals to push water inland. But with a $100 billion price tag, uncertain benefits, and major environmental risks, Australia's plan remains deeply controversial. Here's the irony. Tunisia's project, though smaller, might be the smarter bet. A compact basin near the sea versus Australia's vast inland gamble. If Chott el Jerid succeeds, it could prove inland seas aren't just mirages. The idea of flooding the Sahara isn't new. It's been imagined, debated, and redrawn for nearly 150 years. Chott el Jerid reminds us how close we've come and how hard it still is. The obstacles? Heat, salt, money, and politics. So here's the big question. Will we ever see an inland sea in the Sahara, or are we still chasing a mirage? Let us know in the comments. And if you're curious about Australia's version of this ambitious desert lake project, check out our full breakdown, Australia's insane plan to build a massive lake in the outback. Click to watch. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss our next deep dive into the world's most ambitious engineering projects.